Yeah, for desoldering, I have a station set up here with a board to remove components, and we're going to show you removing a number of different types of components. And we have two different types of solder suckers or solder removing devices. We have this one here from Radio Shack, vacuum desoldering tool, comes in a nice little package, and we'll open that up and show you how that works. This is a simple vacuum device, and you will press on this plunger, and when you push this button, it releases the plunger and creates a vacuum. And again, you push down to prime the pump, and you push this button right here to release it and suck the solder. Now, in order to suck the solder, it has to be liquid to flow up there. Now, one of the things when you notice is that when you push this back in, you see the little rod stick out the tip there. That's a way of cleaning the pump. So you have to be careful when you're using this that you don't clean the pump and drop the solder right onto your board that you just tried to remove it from. Okay. Also over here I have a similar device. It has a pump, a release. What's interesting about this, it has a built-in heater. So this is a solder and iron and pump solder removal or vacuum solder removal device all in one. Another method of using or removing solder, it's solder wick, but I do not show that, and I'm not going to get into that with the reasons I'll discuss at the end of the video. Now I've got this through hole component here, and again I'm going to heat up and put a little bit more solder on there just to get some flux in there. Reset my solder sucker, come in here, heat it up, and suck that solder right out of there. Again, heat it up and suck that solder out. Now, those components look to be pretty well clear, but I'm going to get in here and try this again. Heat it up and get that solder sucker in there and just really go to work on it. Heat it up. Okay. The component that I'm trying to remove, this little 2-terminal jumper, is somewhat loose, and I can work it back and forth a little bit and it will come out. Now we can do the same thing. We can do the same thing with this solder sucker, and this makes it a little easier. Again, clean the tip, make sure I've got a clean tip. Go in there and put it on here. Now one thing that's nice is that as it heats up, you can wiggle it around. One thing that's nice, as it heats up, you can wiggle it around a little bit and suck that out. Now as I just did that, I didn't have any suction from the pump. So in this case, what I'm going to have to do is take the pump apart and clean it. We'll be back with that. All right, I've got my solder sucker cleaned. And we're going to come in here and I'm going to put the solder remover right here on this terminal, heat it up, make sure it's loose, wiggling it around a little bit, and suck it out. Okay? I didn't set that up, so it sucked that out. Now put this on the next terminal, heat it up, you feel the pin moving, and suck it out. Okay? Come over here to the next one. Put this on here, heat it up, you can feel the pin moving, and suck it out. Here we go. Again, feel it moving, and release it. Alright, now, come over here, and it's loose, reach in there, pull it out. Okay, be careful in these things when you work with this. It will be hot. Reach over and grab that terminal we just desoldered, and you will burn your fingers, so you might want to use a pair of pliers on those. We have this LED here. What I'm going to do is go through that again and show you about the removing of the LED. Okay, clean the tip, prime the pump away from the board, and come in here and heat up the first pin, loosen it up, and suck that solder out. Now you come down here, hit the next one, loosen it up, and suck that solder out. Now on this first one, the second pin is nice and loose, but the first pin is not. So I'll come back in here and heat that up again. Make sure it's loose and I can feel the LED wiggling on the other side, and suck it out. Now I can sit there and come back in here, reach around, and pull the part out. Okay, nice and loose, and there's my removed LED. A couple of things when working with solder sucking, solder removal, is to pay attention to, is your circuit board down in here. The application of too much heat on these areas will cause the traces to delaminate. Delaminate is where they pull away from the board, and essentially you've lost your connections at that point. That's one of the reasons why I don't like to use solder wick. Solder wick applies so much heat in the area, and it's very easy to put too much heat in here and delaminate the board. Now when you're using the handheld solder sucker and a soldering iron, again, keep the iron clean. Come in here, put some solder in there, hold it, get it nice and hot, then come in with the solder sucker and suck it out. The closer you can get this solder sucker to the board, the more suction you'll have and the more pulling power you'll have.